All right, so I just wanted to take a moment to go over some of the questions that students have had regarding the project and the presentation for the project. So first, I'm going to go over a real quick abridged example of a project that I've made here. I'm not in a real group, so I just found 4 pictures of me across different years. I was Einstein for Halloween one year at work. This is not a topic that's available to students, so please don't try to steal the content from the file. So first, you'll notice that there's a picture of what should be normally different members. If you only have 2 people in your group, or if you've got 5 or 3 or any number, then obviously you would have that many pictures. Several students have asked about that already. Make sure each picture has only one person in it. In previous semesters, I've had a picture that showed 2 ladies in it, and I don't know which one is actually in my class. So I need to be able to tell who you are so that I can grade the later parts correctly. So also make sure your information's clearly labeled. So your class, depending on what you're in, could be 1105 for a lab or 1305 for a lecture. The section could be 2A1 for an online section, or it could be 1C1 for a hybrid section, or a number of things there. And then obviously semester and year, you should hopefully know what those are for your class. Then a really important part is making sure that the slides are labeled, so that we know exactly what you're trying to present. Sometimes students have tried to mix topics or go out of order, and then the assignments don't get graded properly because I can't always tell what's trying to be presented there. So here at 1.1, this is the one main slide that everybody should do together. There's nothing extra here. Each student, will contribute. If you're having a hard time hearing back from a group member, you can start this, put your picture on there first, and add their picture on there later. This is one of the ways that you can work independently of each other as you're waiting for, communication or time to pass. Okay, then one of the biggest questions that keeps popping up, each student needs to have a slide for each objective. So I've skipped ahead here. Probably one of the easiest ones to talk about would be different scientists that are involved in a topic. So 1.4, this is labeled as the first partner and gives information about, excuse me, about this scientist. Okay, then a different group member will have another version of this slide. So each of you, see 1, 2, 3, 4, each of you will have a slide for each objective. And then label them so I know who did what, and then give your information, have a picture, make sure you've got a source here. So you're going to have to collect these later. It's a lot easier if you go ahead and put this on each slide now, so that at the end of the project, it's a lot easier to have these together. Okay, now make sure that you're using different information from each other. If all 4 members covered Albert Einstein, then that's not helpful. Make sure you have enough information that you can split up and you can talk about different things. Okay, so that probably answers like 90% of the questions that have come in, but I'm going to go ahead and go over the guide that I shared before as well. Okay, so here, this only has 2 pictures on it just because I wanted room to annotate and add some stuff around. Obviously, this is generic because this one I've removed basically all scientific content. It is not important which student is first, left side, right side, wherever. Then obviously put in your real name here. Don't put student A or student 1. Put in what your name is. That's going to be important because that's how I'm going to grade you later. Okay, again, make sure that everything's clearly labeled, make sure that the topic is here so I know which project you're on. Topics are different between lecture and lab, so it's very important that these are marked correctly and that you're covering the correct topic, because otherwise you won't get any points. Okay, so for the introduction, you're going to have the name of one of the students here, and then you're going to have, 1, 2, 3, 4 more versions of the slide where each student's going to have their own name on it, right? So here, Brian Neal would be the first one, if he did this one, and would have information here. I had students before try to steal my pictures, so this time I put a picture that's actually ironically not helpful. but you will want to find something that is and share it, and then give the website here or provide the source. If this came from the textbook or something, that's fine. A lot of this information you can get from the book. Pictures might come from the book too. Put that information here so that you can have that for later. Okay, for the introduction in general, though, you just want to start with very basic information about your topic. So if you've got Hooke's law or a gravitational constant, or my example that I talked about a minute ago was relativistic factor, put just basic stuff about that. Don't get super technical yet. It's just general information to get it started. Most importantly, though, one student per slide, one slide per student. Everybody needs to cover this topic or you're going to start losing points. You need to have different information for each student and different pictures for each student. So you can work independently, again, if you're waiting on each other, if there's communication issues, if you just can't line up the timing, you can work independently and share information later. But you need to coordinate at least enough to say, hey, this is what I'm covering, so make sure you do something different. Okay, so like with the scientists, if you're having trouble hearing from one of your partners, set up in your group chat or tell them through Blackboard, hey, look, I'm going to talk about Galileo for my scientists, so make sure you talk about somebody else. And then that way you can cover different things and you can combine your information later as needed. Okay, so like I said, make sure you coordinate to guarantee that you're covering different information. Make sure you get enough information so that everybody has something to go over. Later, you're going to need to record yourselves where you're going over your own slides. So Brian Neal would go over the Brian Neal slides, and they need to be recorded where their face can be seen at the same time as their project. They need to talk over the things that are here. Ideally, you're not just reading the information directly from the slides. So, put, short statements here. Don't put full sentences. Um, you know, make note cards if you need to or practice ahead of time. You should know the topics well enough that you don't need to read directly from the slides. Okay, then relevant fields. A lot of students have questions on this part as well. So you need to make sure that you're using specific fields. You don't want to use general areas like just science. The problem here is that if you say, okay, well, science is relevant for my topic, if you talk about all of science, it becomes very difficult for your partners to find something else to talk about. However, if you talk about nuclear physics, then maybe your partners can talk about atomic physics or high energy physics or something else, and it makes it easier for you to find different topics to cover. If you say my topic is about physics, again, that's really general. That takes away the ability for your partners to have something to talk about. Then, again, very basic beginning facts here. We're not meant to go super deep into anything in this beginning part. Explain how the topic relates to the field. So if you're talking about nuclear physics, say why your topic is important for nuclear physics, or say how nuclear physics led to your topic. It can go in either direction. You need to cover different things for different people. You need to have different pictures for different people, and everybody needs to have their own slide. So you will label the slide. That person will get credit and nobody else will. Then the other students will need their own versions of a 1.3 for them to get credit. Again, put the website or the source involved, and then that will make it a lot easier for later for you to collect these and to talk about what you used during the project. Okay, relevant scientists. Again, pick different scientists, find things about their life. Where were they born? When were they born? For a lot of these topics, these people have already passed away. When did they pass away? If there's an interesting fact, bring that in. What are they famous for that may or may not be this topic? Einstein's famous for a lot of stuff. So, Newton is famous for a lot of stuff. What are some of the things that they worked on? Where did they go to school? Just find some stuff to say about the scientist. Make sure you've got different scientists from each other. Now, where you can stretch this a little bit is that you can find scientists that worked on information that led to your topic, or maybe recent scientists that are working on this stuff now. So if your original topic was discovered by Newton, don't say, well, he's the only one that did anything, because that's not true. There were scientists well before Newton that were natural philosophers and working on similar things. There have been scientists since then that have expanded on these topics. So find some different scientists. Again, one student will get credit for this slide, because the other students need to have their own version. When it's time to do the recording, I think I've already mentioned that the student will record the slides that have their names on them. And then you will combine all of these together to be one long video, and then that's going to be the end of the project here. One very major problem that kept coming up in previous semesters, you cannot use renamed or alternate text on links. So this doesn't tell me what your link is. I can't open that. So sometimes when they're uploaded or sometimes when they're saved as a PDF, at some point in the process, the link will break and I will not be able to open it. If your video is set to private, then I won't be able to view it. If you don't want it to be public, that's fine. You can use unlisted, and that means that only somebody who has the direct link can find your video. Really, what I'm looking at is when you've got your link here, a lot of times there's extra information before and after, but basically there's a code. And so I'm going to use your code. I'm going to type youtube.be, it makes YouTube / and then your code, and that's how I'm going to find your video. I'm not going to actually click on the link here anyway, because most of the time they're broken, but I'm going to copy whatever's on the end and I'm going to use that to make a link similar to this one. But that's where nearly half of your grade comes from each of these parts. I have to be able to find your recording, right? And so you want one link here where all your videos are combined and uploaded. This takes time, so don't wait until the last minute. If you can't record at the same time as your group members, which very often happens, then you can record separate videos and you can share those to each other, combine them or stitch them or whatever people are calling that now. Make it into one video and then upload that to YouTube. If there are restrictions, if for some reason you can't upload your video, if it's too much length or too big of a file or whatever weird issue, if you really have to, then use separate links. But again, you should try to do just one. All right, if you have any further questions, please let me know. But that's a lot of what's come up so far. I will make a future video and going over some of these other ones, but it's a lot of the same stuff, right? So suggested things to answer for each different slide that's in the guide. Make sure each student has their own version of each different slide. So if you are only on the 1.1 at the front and you don't contribute anything, if you don't have your own slide, then you're not going to get points for the other sections. If there are 2 names on here, then you're not going to get points, either one of you. So do not share, split up. Make sure you have your own slides. If you have any other questions, please let me know.